like the rushing of a mighty wind, like the rushing of a mighty wind.
Okay, Dream, are you here? So what is your definition for systemic racism? Because what happens is a lot of us argue stuff and it won't be an argument as much if we share the same definition, because you automatically think I got your definition. I automatically think, you got mine. So what would be your definition of systemic racism to say it doesn't exist today? Because most people think you're crazy to say something like that.
Right. So I think slavery was systemic because it was a legal institution.
Right. So you give me examples
because it was.
No, yeah, but those are all examples.
Well, that's
like,
what
is
I mean
your
by
definition?
systemic. I mean it's legal. It's written into the
Right.
law. That's how I define systemic racism. When it's written into the law.
I got you. But it has a definition. You see what I'm saying? So like the confusion, so it's like it's not wise for me to debate or argue or question about a definition that you don't really hold to once we start pulling straws. So like, do you understand? Or I could tell you, do you know the official definition of systemic racism?
The only systemic racism that I think ever existed were the ones that were written into law, like slavery and Jim Crow and certain policies that like redlining that may have taken place. Those things I think are systemic because you can show me those laws and policies that were written. But today, I don't know if you can show me any laws and policies that are written down today that I would say counts as systemic racism. Those are the only ones that.
Okay. Stop. Okay, stop. Just talk along. Stop. Okay, I gotta mute him. Like he said, let him go ahead and. God damn, bro. Like, damn, I want to talk too. He said, hold on. I want to clarify. It's like you're taking these moments to talk long on purpose. Okay, yes. So what happens is like a Pan-Africanist, y'all have to frame it and create the lines where it fits your argument. I get that, but we have something called the truth, right? We can look at it right now. Hold on. Does systemic racism only exist in written law? Okay. If not, and you don't have to accept it. I'm not, of course you won't. But I'm going to show the chat. Like we understand how to debate. We understand how to rebut. We know that people got to frame it a certain way to handicap, right? So systemic racism does not exist solely written in law, but also operates through unwritten policies, beliefs, practices, and norms that are deeply embedded in institutions. While explicit legal discrimination has largely been outlawed, the legacy of past racist laws and the ongoing use of discretionary policies perpetuate unequal outcomes of marginalized groups. Like, for example, so give some examples, but I don't want to read those. I'm going to start my own. Okay, so now, mass incarceration. Okay, we're talking about the crack cocaine ratio, 100 to 1. Are you familiar with that?
I'm familiar, yes.
Okay. Do you believe that was racially motivated or no?
I don't really know enough about it to say whether it's racially motivated, but I would likely say, it's more likely that I would say no.
Okay, cool. So let me just say this without being long-winded. Black folks sold crack. Is that a fact?
Yes.
Right, and that's not good. Like, crack is a dangerous drug. If you get hooked to that, you're gonna be messed up. You're gonna be a damn menace to society, right? I've been stealing, and you're gonna be on the streets mucking up. Okay, so when you break that law, consequences like you should be held to legal jail sentences, right? You should be held to jail because at that time, you sell crack or you buy crack, you get caught, you go to jail, right?
Yes.
Okay, so for example, so now if a predominantly black community was selling drugs at the same rate as a predominantly white community anywhere in the country, and if one city is black or white, you could reverse it, mix it up. If one race is being year by year consistently jailed for that crime of selling and smoking and using, and the other race year by year throughout the nation is being let's say given a second chance, probation, slap on wrist type of stuff. You don't think that will call for somebody to say, hey man, there's a racial disparity there between who goes to jail, who's not going to jail?
Yeah, I can see where they could see a racial disparity.
So when somebody says, okay, that is the example of systemic racism, you wouldn't really have much pushback for that, right?
Well, I don't think that just because there's a racial disparity means it's racism.
I understand. I'm just saying that, okay.
But that would be the only pushback that I would give.
Okay, cool. So now let's stop there, because that's being locked up. So now when we talk about getting loans from the bank, so black person, white people, and we're filtering out, where we're looking at same profiles. They make the same amount of money, work is similar, credit score is similar, and they're going to get a loan or try to buy a house. So consider what I just said before about the sentencing, right? Who's being arrested for that? Now you have a same thing. You have a group of black people compared to white with the same profile, and you see a racial disparity in who's getting the loan and who's not. You're talking about same profile. It just only thing separate them is black and white, and it's large. Let's say the gap is like kind of like almost near the example I gave with the who gets arrested for drugs. Would you see as a pattern, like, okay, this is another racial disparity? This is interesting to look at as possibly going along the lines of systemic racism. Is that a...
Well, again, I don't think just because there's a racial disparity means it's a result of racism.
But I'm saying, okay, if there's racial disparities between black and white, and they're lopsided, and it affects these people almost every dynamic in life. So with jail sentences, we're talking about, I just talked about the home ownership, who's being denied, who's being accepted. When we keep seeing this dynamic for things you have access to, and you're only being denied or you're being penalized because you are, it seems like that disparity, that racial disparity plays a part in almost everything black and white do alike. At some point, that pattern is going to look like this is systemic. This ain't just a one-off. You agree or no?
Well, I'm not sure if all dynamics are like that, where whites are at the top.
Okay, no. Just the example I just gave. So for one, the sentencing with the drug thing, and then I gave you the home ownership. Okay, and one more, school to prison pipeline. So white kids being penalized for the same offense as black kids, and throughout the country, you'll see white kids slapped on the wrist, and you'll see black kids at a more alarming rate being penalized, suspended, out of school, in school, parent teaching conference with white folks, white kids, they get more of a slap on the wrist. That's a third dynamic through that. So out of those three, is it reasonable to look at these three dynamics like, wow, and this is affecting society, to say, wow, this is something to look at, because we have home ownership, loans, blacks are being denied at the same at a worse rate than white folks with the same profile, and then you have evenly but they're treated differently, and then you got the school to prison pipeline. Both kids are bad, but one kid's kicked out of school, or one color of a kid is kicked out of school on that rate, and this other colored kid that belongs to this lineage is normally treated differently. Like they're slapped on the wrist, but they're not kicked out of school. Okay, they're disciplined, maybe a parent conference, maybe, hey, stay after school, but they're not suspended. And then the crack thing. So those three different dynamics, right? You don't see that as possible, how it could be looked at as a possible pattern to justify a claim like systemic racism.
It can be looked at like that, but again, okay, just because there's a racial disparity, in my view, doesn't mean that there's racism. For example, if I could just speak to one of those, the prison to pipeline thing, I think it's more likely that the white kids have white teachers and those black kids have have black teachers, or they're not the same teachers, or it's more likely that the black kids are in the inner city with teachers that more likely look like them. So it's not white teachers
That's not
suspending. So
no.
what? So if I could just
No,
finish. No?
because
Okay.
because that's never false. Then, bro, all my teachers were white. I had Miss Hembry. I had another. Yeah, most of my. Well, I don't know where you got that from. That's some Jamaican shit in Jamaica. But in America, man, almost all of my teachers, all throughout school, were all white. Like, I was happy to have a black teacher here. And I had a history. I had a social studies teacher. No, both. One was history, social studies, and one was my science teacher in middle school. And my typing teacher was black. I can actually remember. You dig that? That's how bad it is. I can remember exactly all throughout my schooling. Yes, I don't know where you get that from. That's some Jamaican shit right there.
No,
Now,
it's
most of my
not,
teachers were.
no. I went to school
Okay.
in the Bronx, and most of my teachers were not white. Like,
Okay.
I had teachers across the whole spectrum, and
Hold
so
on.
if there were suspensions for kids in the Bronx, it's not necessary for black kids in the Bronx. It's not necessarily because there's a white teacher suspending them. It could be a black teacher or an Asian teacher. Like, so it doesn't necessarily have to be systemic racism, or there could be other reasons. Just because there's a racial disparity
Okay.
doesn't mean that there's racism.
Okay. Hold. Stop. So let me debunk that bullshit you said, my boy. Okay, that's one thing we don't do over here. Lie and be hypothetical. I just looked it up. Black American students most often experience white teachers. What are you talking about? It says as the public school teachers workforce is overwhelmingly white and around 80% 2022. What the fuck you talking about? Come on, man.
I know where I went to school. I know where I went to school.
All right, okay, but that shit, okay. I just gave you an average. 8 out of 10 black kids experience white teachers. So you can answer that question over, but that scenario you gave, that's false. That's some shit you made up. Like I said, that's some Jamaican shit. I got black teachers out there. We don't experience black teachers like that out here. So the average teachers in our experience in public schools are 80% white.
Wait, that's across the country?
That's national. That's the average teacher. Look, I specifically said this. Listen to what I'm saying. Listen to the question. I asked black students, do they often experience, that's national. Black students are national. Do they often experience white teachers or black teachers? And here is your result right here. Matter of fact, you can see what I typed in there. Look.
I can't see anything.
I know you'll see it right now. Okay, it says, do black American students often experience, okay, look at this. Look, I typed in, there you go. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, do black American students often experience white teachers or black teachers? So that debunked everything you just said. That's why I said all my teachers were white. What are you talking about?
Well, again, all of my teachers were not white.
Okay.
You know,
but it's not about me. But don't forget, but it's not about me and you. We got it. We got that most black students are going to face white teachers in their experience with school. Far more than a black teacher. 80%, 8 out of 10 of our teachers will be white, and 2 out of 10 will be black. So there's no need for our anecdotal experiences. It's 8 out of 10 white, 2 out of 10 black.
Well, you brought in your anecdotal, which is why I brought mine in.
Okay, fair. But now we see the stat, right? Because I thought yours was crazy.
Yeah, but even given that stat, I don't necessarily think that those white teachers that are suspending black kids is doing it because they're racist.
Well, nobody know intent. Like, just like when a person gets ass beat by a cop, we don't really know the intent. But it's not about intent. It's not about intent. It's again, we're just looking at, forget about intent. Even a person denied alone, that we can't prove intent. Okay, we're just looking at the numbers. We see the drug epidemic or the racial disparity. We see is black at the top end, white at the bottom. When it comes to home loans or anything to do with a bank, it's black on the bottom, white at the top. And now we see the school prison pipeline, the school punishment. We see whites are less likely to be punished for the same action as a black person. So I was saying, like, do you see how somebody can tie that together and say, hey man, Just looking at the stats, forget about intent, forget about the ins and outs and why and who. Just looking at these stats isn't reasonable for somebody to say, hey, man, systemic racism is alive and well. That's what I was asking.
Yes, I can see how somebody could do that, but that
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean that they are correct.
Okay. Right. I that was not even part of the question. Like, that's your insecurity saying that. I just asked the question. Could you see that? So basically, I was saying for somebody to make that argument, because sometimes you can make an argument and be just dead wrong. Like you just connecting dots and it's just wrong. Like the whole Black Egypt thing. Like you're just wrong. But some people could be possibly wrong. Like you're saying, they could be possibly wrong, but they're not crazy. The argument is sensible. It makes a little sense because this does look like that. I get it. Correlation that does not always mean causation. I understand that. Just because it's all look the same doesn't mean that this is the answer. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what I'm saying. I think there may be other factors that we are ignoring, and we got to look at all the factors, which is why for me to be systemic, you'd have to show me something written in the law, written in their policy that this is what they're doing.
I gotta mute you because I just showed you that stuff is not written in law. Again, you're Jamaican, you don't know. But Black Americans, we were even today. But I know growing up, there's certain places I couldn't be. There was no law. It was common sense. You're not going to that bar. You're not going to that bathroom. You're not eating there. And that's largely like that in the South. You don't know because you're tethering in New York. But if you take your ass to the Mississippi or South Carolina where I was, you're not running your Black ass in some of these places talking about, oh, nah, this ain't because I'm Black. That's why y'all safe and sound like that song in New York. You guys refuse to, and I don't blame you, but you guys refuse to experience what they call the deep South and some call the violent South. You take your Black ass over there and you're gonna have a different opinion on. So that's why, family, it's easy for these folks to conclude, especially like non-Black Americans, that's also dark, like him. It's easy for them to not see it because they really never experienced it. And what they experienced is like, he's in a sanctuary city. If he was an illegal alien, he's so protected, it's hard to even lock his ass up for anything. Like he could commit a DUI and they would still protect his ass from ICE. Like so many have done. DUI number 2, number 3, 4, and they're illegal. They should have been gone. And they get deported, come right back and allowed back in through somebody's administration. But real fast, let me, Barry, you can go off mute and just come off mute, give your closing argument, and thank you for clicking the link. But let me just shout out V4 Business first. He says, $10, okay, we're leaving. $10 super chat. But the lady, she says, if the racial disparity is created through bias within institutions, it's the very definition of systemic racism, as the NIT Harvard University study proved in 2004 for resume bias. So if you want, you can respond to that or not, and you just can close out whatever you got to say without my interruption. So I'll give you 5 minutes. It's 9:16. 5 minutes. You could do it shorter or longer, but I want you just to get off what you stand up. Okay.
Yeah.
Dirty. Oh, hey, bro, I muted you. I meant to mute myself, bro. My fault. Go ahead and mute yourself. Yeah, I meant to mute myself.
Yeah.
Shit. Go ahead.
I wasn't, when you were reading what V4 said, I wasn't really, I thought you were just reading that for the chat. So I didn't really hear what he said. But in closing, so I can't really respond to it because I don't really know what you said. But the only thing I would say is that you can find scenarios in which the roles are switched where Blacks aren't like, for example, with alcohol related crimes, white folks are arrested at a higher rate than Black folks for alcohol related crimes. But I don't think we would use that to say it's an example of systemic racism against white folks. I think we would say there are other reasons why that disparity occurs. So a racial disparity doesn't necessarily mean racism? Do I see where if there are a bunch of them, people can make the conclusion that yes, it is racism? Yeah, I can see where people can do that, but it doesn't mean that that's what it is. The other thing I'd like to say, if I can, is just because there's a definition for what systemic racism is, doesn't mean systemic racism is a real thing. It's just what people say it is. The same way there's a definition for what God is, but that doesn't mean God is real. So you can have a definition and say, this is the definition, so that's what it is, but that doesn't mean that it's a real thing. And that's pretty much what I would close with.
Ooh, yeah. Suddenly there came a sound from heaven, as of a rushing mighty wind, like the rushing of a mighty wind, like the rushing of a mighty wind. Come and fill our hearts again, like the rushing of a mighty wind, like a river that is overflow, like a river that is overflow. Come and fill our hearts once more, like a river that is overflow. Let it overflow, let it overflow, let it overflow, let it over, let it overflow, let it overflow, let it overflow, let it over. And let the people come from miles around as you send your spirit down, just to revive your church, to revive your church again. Please come in like a rushing wind, like the rushing of a mighty wind, like the rushing of a mighty wind. Come and fill our hearts again, like the rushing of a mighty wind. Let it overflow, let it overflow, let it overflow, let it over, let it overflow, let it overflow, let it overflow, let it over. And let the people come from miles around as you send your spirit down, just to revive your church, to revive your church again. Please come in like a rushing wind, like the rushing of a mighty wind, like the rushing of a mighty wind. Come and fill our hearts again, like the rushing of a mighty wind, like a river that is overflow, like a river that is overflow.